something in this world that bothers you. Now listen, I'm not talking about irritates you for all you curmudgeons. Yeah, you got time, Pastor? I got a litany or a list of things that bother me. 680 merging on north or south. And no, is there something in this world that bothers you, that weighs you down, that, not irritates you, but bothers you? Something that burdens you in such a way, something that weighs on you, weighs on your soul, weighs on your heart on the behalf of other people. Yep. What is it? Maybe it's an injustice. Maybe it's abuse. Maybe it's neglect. Maybe it's something, that someone, it's happening to them and it's hurting them. Maybe it's someone who's alone or lost or left behind, forgotten about. It might not even make sense to others, but to you, it stirs something deep within you and inside of you, and it disturbs you, and it creates a righteous anger on behalf of God. What is it? I heard it said like this: the burden that you bear often reveals a calling that you embrace. The burden that you and I bear often reveals the calling that we grab onto and base our life on. It's that thing that upsets you. And whatever it is, whatever that burden is for you, God might be trying to use that burden to call you to something greater. Here's what I also know. I also know that you and I, we rarely know when we're standing on the edge of something very special. We rarely know it. We rarely recognize it. You rarely know when you're standing on the edge of something special, when God is about to build something eternal through you. Something that makes a significant difference in the world around you. For example, Kristen and I were dating. We were just dating. And a couple of years ago. And we were just dating, and we saw a need at the church we were at. We grew up in a youth group there, then for some reason the youth group went away, and we didn't have a youth group for years, and Kristen and I saw a need. We saw a need for a teen Bible study. Not a youth group, a teen Bible study. Listen, we didn't know how to do it or what to do. We were 19 and 20, maybe we were 17 and 18, I can't remember. We didn't know what to do or how to do it. We just did it. And guess what? It grew. Fast forward a couple of years. We were at another church. And we saw a need for worship and youth, an environment for youth to get to know Jesus. Again, we didn't know how to do it. We didn't know what we were doing at the time. We just did it. And it grew. Fast forward to Creekside. I ended up selling my company I started and coming here full time. Went through school. Again, started doing worship at now a larger church. Youth group needed someone to step in and help the 12 kids that were in the youth ministry at the time. I never worked at a church before. Never had formal training, but my wife and I, we just did it. Leading worship. You know how I learned how to play guitar? I went to school for woodwind, saxophone, and then when I would cut class, I'd be in the music room, which I did a lot, and I don't recommend it. And taught myself drums, bass. I learned guitar by Tom Fogerty, or John Fogerty was my teacher. No, not him, literally. I would listen to CCR, and I learned 3-4 chord rock and roll songs. That's how I learned how to play guitar. And not super proficient at it, but I learned enough to do what needed to be done. And guess what happened? Worship ministry, youth group, and Creekside Church, it grew. And then 10 years of being here on staff, my wife and I, and I referenced this a week ago or 2 ago, where we felt the call and we saw a need to step out of this context into another context and give some life to a church. We went and planted a church. I didn't know how to plant a church. I knew how to start a business, but I didn't know how to plant a church, start a church. And we did it, and we planted Generations Church. Here's the deal. Through all of those experiences, over 10 to 15 years, we didn't have any idea what we were doing. None. We didn't take a class. We didn't get told. We didn't have any idea how to do what we did and what we were doing. No idea. You know what it was? We just saw a need. We didn't see a need and then go, "Oh, wow, hope someone steps up and makes that happen. I hope the pastors of the church really see the need that I see and they do something about it." We saw a need. We just saw a need. And we looked for opportunities to help meet that need. Simple. We gave it a shot. And because we gave it a shot, we saw God do some pretty amazing things every step of the way, along the way. Things that we could have never imagined. And that's exactly where some of you are right now. Some of you are in that exact spot right now. You're seeing a need. I know you are because many of you have come up to me and said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe we should do this. Pastor, this might be a good thing for the church to do or for you and the staff to do." So some of you are right there. You see the need. And many of you are bothered by something. No, I'm not talking about the fact that I maybe just called some people out right now. Yeah, I'm bothered by you just said that because I was one of those people that came to you. No, that's not what I'm talking about. You're bothered by something. You're considering doing something about it. Whatever you're bothered by, you're considering doing something about it. You're even praying about, what can I do? You're praying about an idea that you have. You're praying about, you're praying about starting something or joining something. Some of you are in that exact same spot right now. You're burdened. You're praying. You're concerned. You're considering stepping up and stepping out, and you have no idea how to do it or what to do. But you also have no idea that you might be on the edge of something incredible. The theme of this series is being built. Or it's about building from the burden that God has placed on our heart, that every single one of us are built for this. We were born on purpose for a purpose. And today I want to talk about building from the burden. Now let me catch you up if you missed last week. Back in 587 BC, there was a king, Nebuchadnezzar. Not a cool dude. King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians attacked Jerusalem, God's people, and they tore down its walls. They obliterated every sense of protection and I would say identity. They tore down its walls. They destroyed their temple, burned it to the ground. And the Babylonians even took Jewish people into captivity, stripping them not just of their way of life, but stripping them of something even more severe: hope. Decades later, several exiles returned to Jerusalem to rebuild their city. And as you can imagine, when they were headed back to a destroyed city with no economic system, no leadership structure, and like I said, no hope. And they ultimately failed at reigniting this rebuilding process. The city remained broken and leaderless for about 140 years. That's a long time. 140 years. Most of us struggle with 3 days. But then enter an ordinary guy. Say ordinary. Because that's how most of us feel, right? I'm just an ordinary person. What can I do? Enter an ordinary guy named what? Nehemiah. Again, read along with us. Next week we're going to be in chapter 3. It's fairly easy to follow. Okay. Nehemiah, an ordinary guy. He was not a prophet. He was not a priest. He was not a warrior. He was not a king. He wasn't even a contractor. You know, there was no 5-star reviews on Yelp about Nehemiah. He wasn't on Angie's List. Is it even called Angie's List anymore? He was just an ordinary guy. He was his profession was being a cupbearer. And if you were here last week, you know that he was a cupbearer for the king of Persia. And what he would do is he would try the food and the wine before the king drank it. In case it was poisoned, Nehemiah would die and not the king. He was a servant. A servant. But Nehemiah had a God-given burden. Listen, Nehemiah didn't have a formal appointed position. What Nehemiah had was a God-given passion. He didn't have a position, but he did have a passion. And sometimes that's all God needs. Passion. A desire. There is somebody, either in-house or online, that I'm speaking to today. You may not have an official position, but what you do have is a passion from God. A passion from God about something that matters. And that's the very thing that qualifies you. The very thing that qualifies you to make a significant difference. Last week, we saw how Nehemiah's heart broke with this burden. And what was Nehemiah's response when his heart was so overwhelmed with this burden? It says that he sat down and he wept. And then it caused him to kneel down to pray. And then after he prayed, he stood up and he did something about it. He said, somebody has to do something about this. Might as well be me. So how, and this is a question we're going to answer today, how do we build from the burden within? How do we build from the burden that God has placed inside every single one of us, I believe, and if you feel like you don't, then I'm praying for you. Every single one of us has a God-given burden. Either you are ignoring it or you haven't realized it yet. Everybody has a burden. How do we build from the burden within that God's placed inside of you? There are 4 very practical ways that we can see from Nehemiah's life out of chapter 2. And I'm praying that you allow the Holy Spirit of God to empower you this morning. through our time together. Because I think our world today needs it. They need the Christ in you. The first thing that we're going to do, the first thing that you're going to want to do is this: cry out before you carry out. Cry out before you carry out. Seek God faithfully. Faithfully. Nehemiah didn't move until he prayed. He didn't make a move until he prayed. And when he heard about the broken walls, guess what? Nehemiah didn't act immediately. He didn't react immediately. He prayed for 4 months. 4 months, Nehemiah prayed. He prayed for, what is he doing? He's seeking God for 4 months. Now, let me give you a little timeline to help you really understand this and get a grasp on this. See, as you read in the text, you'll see that Nehemiah heard the news about his people in the month of Kislev. Now, Kislev is our equivalent of probably November, December. Am I right, Graham? Around that time. And he begins to pray. I asked Graham because he knows a lot more about this than I do. Plus, he's doing a Bible study coming up pretty soon. He begins to pray, and he starts in Kislev, December our time, and he prays until the month of Nisan. Not the car, the month. He prayed for 4 months. He didn't pray in 1 month. He prayed for 4 months. This is 4 months after Kislev. For 4 months, he's praying. He's fasting. He's praying. He's fasting. He's seeking the God of heaven. 4 months. Some of you may be asking, oh man, it's a long time. Why is he doing this? It's a fair question. Because Nehemiah, this is the reason, he is asking God to guide his steps. He's just not willy-nilly jumping out and go, oh, I got this, I know what I'm doing. He's asking God to guide his steps. And it's impossible. It's impossible to describe how tricky, this is for a cupbearer to approach a king with this kind of stuff, with this kind of request. Because the very nature of the cupbearer's job, his role, his responsibility is to protect the king. And not just from poison, but from any unpleasant negative news. So you can imagine how tricky it was to go to the king with this burden. He was supposed to protect the king from any unpleasant news, any worries, and give the king only good news. Nehemiah was in a very difficult place. In chapter 2, verse 1, he describes it this way. He was saying, if you got your Bibles and following along, Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 1, if you don't, it's up on the screen. It says, I was serving the king his wine. I had never before appeared sad in his presence. So the king asked me, Nehemiah, what's up, man? Not in those words. He says, why are you looking so sad? I mean, you don't look sick to me. And the king said, you must be deeply troubled. This burden that was within him was affecting how he looked on the outside. It wasn't some inauthentic, poor me, my life sucks. It was a genuine, authentic burden. You must be deeply troubled. You see here the intimacy in their relationship, how close Nehemiah was to the king. And here's Nehemiah's response. He says, then I was terrified. Rightfully so. Because the king's asking now, and you don't bring bad news to the king. So then I was terrified, but I replied, long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins and the gates have been destroyed by fire. Then the king asked, well, how can I help you? That was the response from the king. How can I help you? And let me remind you, this is probably a result of all of the prayer. God opened doors where Nehemiah didn't see any, where the doors could not be opened. How can I help you? The king responded. Here again, how many times do we see this? Where Nehemiah says, with a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied. He didn't answer the king right away. What did he do? He sought the Lord immediately. With a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied. And you got to understand, this wasn't a panic prayer. This was a prepared prayer. Because Nehemiah had been walking with God, intimately knows God, intimately walking with God, that Nehemiah was ready when the moment presented itself. Not a panic prayer, a prepared prayer. And listen, you and I, we need to be people who can pray both ways. I think we're well versed in the panic prayer.
Yeah.
Like, we're locked in on that, aren't we? We need to be a people who can pray both ways. Long and deep, intimate prayers in private, and short text prayers in the moment. What we need to be is we need to be in constant communication, not catching up. By the way, God, just let me catch you up on what's going on, where I can use your help. We need to be in constant, God, give me the words. God, give me the wisdom. God, lead me now. Show me where to go. Let me see the path. God, show me what to do. God, tell me what to say before we do it. There in the presence of the king. And the king asks, what do you want? That's a question Nehemiah usually asked the king. And then Nehemiah said, I prayed to the God of heaven. I prayed to the God of heaven. And after I did that, then I answered. Then I answered the king. Listen, here's a truth. When it comes to prayer, remember that when you and I pray, in prayer, nothing is too big for God's power, nothing too small for God's heart. We kind of quantify that, right? Oh, God's not going to, I got a hurt tooth. God ain't going to listen to that. It's too small. He's worried about bigger things, right? No. Nothing is too big for God's power and nothing is too small for God's heart. He cares about it all. He cares about it all. If it's your burden, what do? We need to bring it to him. We need to cry out to him before we carry it out. We need to seek him faithfully. Here's an example. Some of you know this because you were there at that time. When we planted Generations Church, again, not knowing what to do, how to do it, we were in the process of trying to find and locate. We were in the process of signing contracts for a new building. Matter of fact, we actually signed the contract for a lease on a new building for the church. And after we signed the contract, the reality hit me that we didn't have the money to make it happen. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but it weighs on you a little bit. We didn't have enough money to make it happen. Listen, what we did have was a passion for permanency in Pleasant Hill. I didn't mean to alliterate that, but I just did. We had a passion to set up a permanent location in Pleasant Hill. And I remember we had this, what we call the Lead Center, is a bunch of offices for really cheap because we were still a set up and tear down church in a different location. And I was upstairs in my office and I was basically lamenting. Maybe asking God for forgiveness for pulling the trigger before I loaded the gun. I don't know. But I was stressed. I was crying out. I was concerned, and I was lamenting about our insufficiency. But here's the thing. I was praying like crazy. Praying. I was praying that I said, God, I'm stuck. We are at the end of where we're able to go. You need to step up and step in to do something about this. And I'm not kidding you. Because I have these moments in my life. You heard, Easter, the trailer, in the little shower, screaming at the top of my lungs in my driveway. This was another moment. I was upstairs. Thankfully, I was alone. And I was crying out before God. And I'm not kidding you. True story. The mail came in that day. And there was, a few envelopes or whatever. And one said the accounting department. Which we didn't have a department. It was some volunteer that opened, because I didn't touch the money. And I assumed it was either a bill or someone's tithe. And God said, you need to open that. And I'm like, no. He said, no, you need to open it. I'm like, no. He said, open the envelope. I'm like, no. And after about 30 minutes of having it on my desk and arguing with God, I opened it. And it was a letter. And out of the letter, a check for $10,000 fell out. It wasn't even someone that went to our church. Had nothing to do with our church. It was from a student that was in my youth group 10 years prior. I don't know who said come on, but that's when the check fell out. That's exactly what my words were, along with some others. $10,000 from a previous youth student with a letter about how I impacted not me, but how his life was impacted. And I challenged him on certain areas and whatever, and he used those challenges to grow, and he ended up starting his own business and whatever. Listen, I shared that story not to be like, hey, cool, God answers prayer.
Yes.
Sometimes at that exact moment. Sometimes it's years from then. I didn't know the seeds that were being planted in this dude's life 10, 12, 13 years earlier, where God was eventually going to use it. That's not mine to control. God answers prayer. You need to cry out before you carry it out. You seek God faithfully. For those of you who have a heart for something or for a vision, listen, if the vision God gave you doesn't require you to pray, it's too small. It's not big enough. How do you build from the burden within? First, you cry out before you carry out. The second thing you do is this. You say it so you can see it. You say it so you got to define your vision carefully. This is what we see Nehemiah doing. Define it. The problem isn't that you don't care. The problem is you aren't clear. For most people, it's not a lack of caring that's your problem. It's a lack of clarity. Check out the crystal clear clarity from an ordinary guy with a vision, a burden from God. The king asked Nehemiah, what can I do? What can I do? Watch Nehemiah's response. He says, I replied, if it please the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to do what? To rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried. One sentence, crystal clear. One sentence, crystal clear. Please send me to Judah so I can do what? Rebuild the city. Clarity. There's no confusion there. No confusion. Seek God faithfully. Define the vision clearly. Here's what Nehemiah didn't say. Well, king, here's what you could do. There's something I've sort of been thinking about. My mom's next door neighbor, she's from Jerusalem, has 3 kids, and one of them's named Steve. So Steve sent me a link to an article about, how bad things are back in my hometown. I mean, it's crazy. And honestly, I've been feeling kind of tired. Tired of pouring your wine and risking my life with every sip. So I thought maybe I should go on a mission trip. Just to check things out for myself. I mean, I've always wanted to travel anyway, see the world, find myself, # wanderlust. So here I am thinking. So I'm thinking about sending out some support letters, you're right, to raise support, to help me do this. Maybe post it on Instagram, Facebook, send out my Venmo link. And if enough comes in, then I might head down there to check things out. Not 100% sure yet, King. Thinking about it. But Steve and his mom said, since I know you, that, maybe I can run the idea past you. So what do you think? Is there any clarity in that? For most people, it's not a lack of caring that's your problem. It's a lack of clarity. That's the problem. I mean, what do you want to do? What is it? What do you want to do? What is God calling you to do? Some might say, He's calling me to help children. Okay, how? Which ones? What age group? All of them? Those who don't have basic needs, can't read? Those who don't have homes? Those who are abused? Where are you going to do this? In another country? You're going to do it right in our backyard, locally. Where? And what does help even mean? Like, define help. What are you going to do? Is it medical help? Is it medical attention? Is it education? Are you going to meet, a specific need? You going to help them find homes? What's help mean? I mean, the bottom line is this, church. Listen, if you can't define it, you cannot do it. If God is calling you to do it, define it clearly. Clearly define it. Again, Nehemiah, please send me. Send me to Judah so I can rebuild the city. Crystal clear. In one sentence, what is God leading you to do? Maybe for some, you're saying to lead my family to become totally debt-free by the end of 2027. Crystal clear. One sentence. Maybe for others, I want to have a personal conversation with everyone in my class before I graduate. Crystal clear. Maybe for others, I want to donate $100,000 to my church in total before age 55. Crystal clear. Maybe for others, it's to help 10 teenage boys in CYC 180 overcome a porn addiction. Clear. One sentence. Maybe for others, I want to see 10 new families far from Jesus become fully devoted Christ followers and attend church on a regular basis by the end of 2026. Crystal clear. If God has given you a burden, define it. Define it, or you can't do it. And if your vision isn't clear, here's the deal. People can't follow you. And if you're saying, I'm a leader and no one's following you, I heard it said this way, you're just taking a walk. A really boring, purposeless walk. Cry out before you carry out. Say it how you see it. The third thing is, don't just dream it, you gotta draft it. Make your plans carefully. The problem is, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And like I said earlier, and I'm going to say it a different way, some of you have been living off a wish list and expecting God to do something. Sometimes the most spiritual thing we can do, ready for this? Deep and theological. The most spiritual thing we can do is to get organized. I mean, think about it. God is a systematic God. God created the solar system. Thank you, Eddie. You know. God created the solar system. You guys say that like, I don't know where he's going with this. I'm kind of scared. Our weeks are consistent. There's not 7 days in some and 9 days in others. There is 12 months in every year, at least since I've been alive. Listen, God is a God of order. You make your plans carefully. Watch how specifically clear Nehemiah is about his plans. In verse 6, he said, the king with the queen sitting beside him, because every good king has an even better queen, asked, how long will you be gone? When will you return? And get this, watch what Nehemiah says. He said, after I told him exactly how long I would be gone, what'd the king do? He agreed to my request. He didn't respond to the king going, I don't know. A couple weeks maybe a couple months. I don't know. No, when I told him exactly how long I would be gone. I also said to the king, if it please the king, let me have letters addressed to the governors of the province west of the Euphrates River, instructing them to let me travel safely through their territories on my way to Judah. And please give me a letter addressed to Asaph, the manager of the king's forest, instructing him to give me timber. I will need it to make beams for the gates of the temple fortress, for the city walls, and for a house for myself. What does Nehemiah do? He asks for two things, provision and protection. He asked for protection and he asked for provision. And guess what? Nehemiah is super clear. Super clear. He had a timeline. He had a materials list. And guess what? He had a plan. He had a plan. And then in verse 6a, it says, and the king granted these requests, not because, I'm so awesome. He said the king granted these requests because the gracious hand of God was on me. What did he do? He sought God. He was led by the very Spirit of God, and God was directing his words and his steps. God was directing it. Nehemiah is very clear with what he was going to do. And he created a plan indicating just how he will accomplish it. I mean, plans are great. I've learned this late in my life. But a plan in itself doesn't accomplish the goal. An executed plan accomplishes the goal. We kind of stop it. But dude, I got a great plan. If you're like me, sometimes you come down with a viral infection called paralysis by analysis. Some of you are going, whoa, where's he going with that? Paralysis by analysis. Have you ever come down with that? I do, all the time. It's where you're frozen because you're overthinking everything. And here's the prescription for that infection. Plans don't need to be perfect. They never are. Plans don't need to be perfect. I would rather execute a good plan today with passion than a perfect plan months from now without passion. What do we need to do? We just need to take the next right step. The next right step. Don't get overwhelmed with everything. Just do whatever is the next best thing. Because success isn't, the accomplishment of something out there around the corner. It's not the success of, accomplishing something out there in the future. It's being faithful to do what is right today. You want to start a ministry? What's the next thing you can do? Find out who's doing it already. Find out who's doing it. Set up a meeting with them. Take a tour of their building. I don't know if you know this, but I planted a seed of a preschool here at Creekside at the ABM last year, or for this year. I don't know. We got a weird calendar, fiscal calendar. But we had an initial vision meeting just a couple of weeks ago. And guess what came out of that meeting? We're setting up a meeting with people who are already doing it. Go set up a meeting. Take a tour. Here's a novel idea. Ask questions and write down the answers. Maybe you have a great idea. This is going to revolutionize, or this is going to glorify God in some way, shape, or form, but you don't know how to do it. Take an online class. Go to the University of YouTube. Get educated. I'm of the firm belief there's nothing that you cannot learn how to do via YouTube. Maybe you find a mentor that can walk alongside you, that you can walk with. Maybe if you get write out a business plan. Or how about listen to a podcast? Maybe for some of you single people, you want a date. You want a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Here, take a shower. Maybe sell your your PlayStation or your Xbox. Maybe buy a shirt with a collar. Go to Target where the girls hang out. Maybe, where they're spending money, buying things they don't need with money they don't have. What's the right thing to do today? Because success isn't the finish line. It's doing the next right thing right now. So what do? Crowd before God, say it so you can see it. Don't just dream it, you got to draft it. And here's the fourth thing, the last thing. Light the fire that others can catch. Inspire people passionately. Inspire those around you. I want to give you a little bit of a warning about next week. What's coming up next week gets a little challenging. We're going to see a lot of opposition, critics and haters. We're going to see people battling discouragement and hopelessness. We're going to, see people who are distracted, fatigued, focused, on their failures and asking the question, is this even worth it? I mean, it's all in the book. You can read it. Is this even worth it? Is this even possible? That's something we've all said at some point in our life, haven't we? And we're going to see, as we have again and again and again and again, Nehemiah step up, reach deep within his soul, and with whatever faith he has to try to inspire people around him. Watch what Nehemiah does. Watch this. Watch what he does. Verse 17. But now I said to them, and he doesn't sugarcoat it. He acknowledges it. He calls it how he sees it. He's straight to the point. He says, you know very well what trouble we're in. You know very well things aren't looking good. We're in trouble, people. And he goes off and kind of rattles off a list of how they're not doing well. Jerusalem, it's in ruins. The gates have been destroyed. By the way, there's a lot of gates. The gates have been destroyed by fire. He says this, let us do what? Rebuild. Let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and end this disgrace. Then I told them about how the gracious hand of God had been on me and about my conversations with the king. Watch what Nehemiah is doing. Look at what he's inspiring people to have faith that God is for them and that God is with them. He's inspiring people and letting them know God is empowering them to do something that matters, to do something that will make a difference. He's showing them that God is opening doors that we don't have the power to open, that God is giving us favor, and God is with us. Friends, even in the face of challenges, we need to inspire people passionately. If the people of God can't walk out those doors and live life victoriously because we know that Jesus overcame the death and hell, but yet we go out there and go, oh, my life sucks. I'm having such a hard time right now. You don't understand. My cell phone battery doesn't last but half a day. How inspiring is that to people who are far from Jesus? Listen, we need to be a people where we see an obstacle, we know God sees an opportunity. I love this great statement from John Wesley. You know who he is, you can Google him. He said, light yourself on fire with passion, and people will come from miles around to watch you burn. How many people in your sphere of influence, at your work, at your school, at your job, maybe even your own home, are shocked when they find out you go to church? You go to what? You believe in Jesus? News to me. Light yourself on fire with passion in such a way that people will come from miles around to watch you burn. Let your God-given burden ignite you. Let it overflow. Let it inspire people to follow you as you follow Christ. Because what burdens you may very well be the thing that God uses to bless other people. I invite you to stand with me as the worship team comes up. So let me ask you again. No, it's not what are you having for lunch. Let me ask you again. Focus, pay attention, people. Don't get distracted. Let the Holy Spirit speak to you this morning. What breaks your heart? Answer that question. What breaks your heart? What burdens your soul? What problems keep you awake at night? Because it matters. It matters. And whatever that is, that just might be your assignment. Because the burden you bear often reveals the difference you will make. Nehemiah didn't wait for a little or for a title. He didn't wait for a position. He didn't wait for a class to be offered. He didn't wait for someone to go, hey, you really should be doing this. Nehemiah, yes, he did say, let me pray about it, but it wasn't, let me pray about if I should do it. He's praying about how I should do it. We kind of just take what God's given us and said, let me pray about that. See if God really wants me to make a difference in this world. He didn't wait for a title. He didn't wait for a position. What did Nehemiah do? He responded to a God-given burden with passion. And what happened? You're going to see that God used Nehemiah and used his yes, Lord response to rebuild a nation. Here's the deal. Some of you are trying to build your life on things that don't last. If I could be real. Things that don't last. Maybe it's success. Maybe it's approval. Maybe it's comfort. Maybe it's control. But I'm here to tell someone who needs to hear it, Jesus Christ is the only foundation that we build upon that is eternal. And if you're going to build on anything that truly matters, your marriage, your family, your calling, it all starts by surrendering your life to Jesus Christ. He is the master builder. And when you build your life on Him, you're not just chasing purpose, you're stepping into it. So today, if you're ready to lay down your past and start building your future on the love, the grace, the truth, and the promises of Jesus Christ, you can do that right now, because that is your next best step. It's the right thing to do today. And I'm going to pray for you. Let's all bow our heads together and let's surrender the broken pieces of our life and say this out loud. Repeat after me. Jesus, I give you my life. Build something beautiful from the burden you've placed in me. Amen. Simple, isn't it? Nothing complicated. Don't complicate it by trying to complicate it. It's simple. I give you my life. I surrender to you. Build something beautiful from the burden you placed within me. In Jesus' name, we pray. Amen. Let's worship.